Welcome, fellow travelers. I'm Joe. This is Good Times RV. Today, I had some radius rods installed. Supersteer Radius Rods for the front suspension. It will keep the front I-beam. I have a Ford F53 chassis with an I-beam and leaf springs front suspension. It will keep that I-beam perpendicular to the center of the RV. For those unfamiliar with the front suspension, here is the I-beam underneath my RV. This is the I-beam between the two wheels and leaf springs, one on either side, to offer suspension. And here's a quick diagram I found on the internet just to show basically what an I-beam looks like. And the radius rods will go between the I-beam and the front spring perches just to maintain its alignment with the RV. So we headed down to Glenn's tire service and a complete automotive service, actually, here in Melbourne, Florida. And Todd is the manager of the suspension area. Here we are heading into the shop. Todd's the manager of the suspension area, and Jeremy is the tech that will be doing the work. He's a very fastidious, very organized guy. You'll appreciate to see him work. It really is quite the operation here. Here we are. Here he is unboxing. Just watch this. This is great. Jeremy has done this a time or two. He knows right where all the pieces are and how they go together. Yeah. Note the audio. It appears to be a very quiet shop. It is not. I worked very hard in Adobe Premiere to get out all the road noises and the other shop noises. It really is a noisy shop, but Audio Premiere is actually quite good in this respect. The first part of this video will be in actual time, and then I'll accelerate the speed so you don't have to sit through the whole hour and a half of installation. And I'll show you all the pieces. I'll just step up the speed maybe 2 times.
Here he's installing the front bracket, which bolts to the frame and the front spring perch. The personal note here of the Milwaukee impact. I do, since I'm in the market for an impact wrench, a cordless impact wrench, I notice what professional mechanics use, and I've noticed that many use the Milwaukee tools, and they have tested out to be the best, if you will, in the market. Shows a good comparison of using hand tools and using an impact, and the difference in speed really moves things along when you use the impacts. You'll note I had considered doing this job myself and purchasing the impact to do it, but there is a fair amount of muscle needed to do this install, and putting this bracket behind the sway bar, attaching it to the essentially attaching it to the I-beam. There's a lot of muscle involved, so I think wisely decided to allow Glenn's tire, Jeremy, to do the install for me. These brackets attach directly to the I-beam at the sway bar perch mount, and the radius rod will go between that bracket and the front bracket that is mounted to the, essentially to the frame at the front spring perch mount. And this maintains the I-beam's alignment to the chassis. It does remove, and I can testify to that, it removes a lot of the wander and a lot of the hesitation when you turn. You always end up with this half step. You turn the wheel and the RV kind of takes a second, everything takes a set, and then the RV starts to turn. Well, now that's not the case. It drives much more like a car. You turn the wheel and the RV starts to follow the front wheels. Here is one of the variables. You see them adjusting the radius rod length, and each radius rod has to have a corresponding length to keep that I-beam perpendicular to the chassis line. And this is one of the critical adjustments that's made during the installation. You'll note he does use the impact to tighten these nuts and bolts, but he has the impact adjusted in such a way that it does not tighten them past their specified torque values, because he does come back at the end and go through, and you'll see this in the video, go through each nut and bolt and not only verify that it's tight, but it is tightened to the appropriate torque spec. And I found, initially I thought about this, but of course he did come back, and I literally watched on the video of him going through each fastener and making sure it's torqued to the appropriate value. Here is using the torque wrench to make sure that those are torqued to the appropriate value. Now here he's tightening the jam nuts. You remember he adjusted the length of those radius rods, and here's just tightening the jam nuts to make sure that that adjustment stays locked in. And here we are reviewing the installation. There's a nice radius rod attached to the front spring perch and bolted to the frame. And on the driver's side, same thing. Bolted to the frame and to the front spring perch. All locked in. Done.
Well, I hope that was interesting. It's always interesting to see things being done to the RV. I've really done an awful lot to the suspension in this RV. I have a liquid spring rear suspension, and you can see I have another video on the rear suspension, and then here on the front. So I think, and I've got front Coney shocks. So I think I've pretty much done now with the suspension. At some point, I might get a larger sway bar, but we'll see. I'll get some miles behind the current setup and see how I feel. But in any event, I hope you found that useful and interesting. And if so, give me a like in YouTube and comment. If you have a question, I know I had a dozen questions and more doing this install. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, or if you have ideas. I'm always interested in new ideas. In any event, happy trails. See you on the road.